Welcome to Mpumelelo Mentorship podcast, where I've made the commitment to rise as I rise with others while making mentorship accessible to all. Now, since the honor of being selected as a Miss South Africa runner-up on August 10, 2024, I've been dedicated to sparking meaningful conversations that inspire our youth to dream beyond their realm of reality. Now today, I'm joined by an extraordinary individual who embodies the spirit of resilience and determination. He has been recognized for his unparalleled dedication and impact on sport. He has been named South Africa's best male athlete with a disability for 2 consecutive years, along with numerous other national and international accolades. Mpumelelo is no stranger to the corporate world and, of course, the running fields. Get ready for a conversation that will inspire, motivate, and challenge your perspective. Welcome, Mpumelelo Mhlongo. I've known you now for about how many years? 4 years?
Yeah,
how did we even meet? I can't even remember.
You said thank you to the zebra.
Thank you to the zebra. Absolutely. And Superstar, as I was telling a story before we brought you in onto the show, I was expressing to someone that I knew you as someone who was a professional athlete, but I didn't quite know your story.
Yes.
And then I had this thinking or this notion that you were in the CSI space and then you went into investment banking. So I've got a little snippet of your lifestyle, but not entirely the journey. So I want you to take us way back. Upbringing. Who is Mpumelelo Mhlongo? How did you go into this industry of becoming a professional athlete? I mean, a Paralympian. I mean, you catch those golds, the commodities in your hands. It's a long-winded question, but
yes,
just enlighten us. Tell us about you.
I think a large portion of my upbringing, I grew up in Kwa-Zulu Natal,
Tequini.
in a small space called Klaarwater.
Okay.
But it's actually Klaarwater.
Oh,
but Zulus and plotting the tal doesn't go hand in hand.
Hi.
So grew up in this really small township, but with a big family. So I won't give you the numbers, but my dad, big family, mother, big family. But in my grandmother's maternal home, there were 17 of us in this little 2-bedroom home. So always grew up with this sense of community, the sense of you have a belonging with others and you need to really find a way to be yourself, but also assimilate in a culture that brings everyone up. But I obviously had the complexity of being born with amniotic band syndrome, which created a deformed club foot and all sorts of complications that put me into surgery by the time I was 3 months old. And my mom had to make this difficult decision when she was, long story, when she was faced with specialists. They're like, if this kid goes into surgery, that could be the end of this kid's life because of the blood loss, etc., etc. The only way we can actually save his life is let's just amputate him. My mom was adamant. She's like, no, my child needs mobility. 3 months. So no matter what happens, I need that foot because that foot means one step in front of the other.
Absolutely.
And whether he's fumbling or stumbling, at least he's moving forward. Sure. So I went in, I got the surgery. Fortunately, I survived. But because of the drastic blood loss, I was a mute, I was deaf, and all your usual cognitive abilities didn't show for me in the first, I'd say about 12 to 15 months of life. And my mom was told, this kid is going to be a couch potato. They're never going to amount to anything. They'll never be able to speak. But this is the risk that you took. And with all that information, she decided to name me Mpumelelo.
Wow.
You know?
That's always a story around Mpumelelo.
That name of success.
Yeah.
And she always frames it as she really wanted me to be reminded that you forge your own destiny in life. It's not something you find. It's not something you stumble on. So when people are shouting at me, they're shouting success.
Absolutely.
When people are calling out for me, they're calling for success. And
that's so resounding.
That mantra is how I went on to build who I was and the sort of goals that I needed. And every step and every part of my journey is you go from township and then my dad becomes a police officer. He goes, oh, don't you want to go to suburban school? I'm like, I barely can speak isiZulu, so now I have to go speak English, but fine. Put me in. And then I go assimilate to the culture, I learn English, and you have an affiliation to sports because sports creates a community that is on equal footing. Doesn't matter who's your father, who's your mother, which sort of neighborhood you grew up on. All anyone cares about who's the fastest.
Absolutely.
Who can kick the ball the furthest or play with other kids the best way for the benefit of the team. And then, so then I was a big sportsman. I thought sport was going to be how I changed the world. Long story again, I get to high school and I thought I was going to get a sports scholarship, no sports scholarship. They tell me, hey, but you can get an academic scholarship. And there's 125 of us in this boys' school. And I go, okay, no, that's fine. Where do I have to end up? They go, you have to be in the top 12 in your grade. Top 12, where am I currently? They go, no, you're about 116. I'm like, that's a long way to climb. But the right teachers, right mentality, managed to get into the top 12. I had a 92 aggregate across my subjects, get the academic scholarship, find myself at UCT as a chemical engineer. And then I stumble onto my love again, which is running, where I was at a provincial championships and somebody who came last and I came second to last said, hey, but what's wrong with your foot? You know, you're so fast. I'm like, my man, you don't even have an arm and you're worrying about my foot. So, worry about your own issues. His name was Vugile Scott. He's like, no, you're misunderstanding me. You could be representing the country.
Yes.
And I was like, well, I thought that dream was long gone. And then fast forward, I'm a world record holder in the Paralympic space, gold medalist.
Sure, superstar. What a story. Oh my word. And I mean, it also, for me, it just resonates so much to have that sponsor. That person who sees you so much more for you and potentially you not at that stage of seeing so much more for yourself. And I think your journey sums that up, that you had encountered so many mentors, so many sponsors who saw so much in you. I mean, your mom didn't give up on you. She knew that, this is my star. This is my success story. And I know where he's going to go. Yes. And so I feel most of our young people can stop at the defining factor of not winning.
Yes.
And I think it's very important for you to kind of redefine a win.
Yes.
And I would like you to just explain to us and elaborate on what does that look like in your life? Because you had so many moments that could have stopped you from proceeding, but you still changed what it meant for you and you still went for it.
And I think it's really important. Like, you define your own success in life. And as you're saying, that a lot of these mentors, whether it's with my own mother, it's the Zulu teacher at Kersney College who gave me the academic scholarship, or it's my coach, Jason Sereniano, who said, hey, you think you can just represent the country? I think you can be the world record holder for your events.
Superstar, do you internalize that?
But I do.
Do you feel it?
I feel it as a we, because there's so many people that poured so much love for us to change history in a meaningful way.
Absolutely.
But what was really essential, and I think the most common theme in that redefining, is we're trying to redefine who we are so that we can take opportunities we don't know exist. And when you're forever trying to improve on yourself, the silver lining is that there's no end point, because there's always something you can do better than you did before.
Sure. That's so profound. And I think, how I'm analyzing that, I'm putting it into a different perspective to kind of go back to how you were raised. You can see where you'd like to be and you don't have limitations because you are in the same space as equals. And so in that moment, when potentially there are challenges, what is the one thing Mpumelelo says to himself to constantly keep going, not be defined by circumstance, by environment, by potential bullies, by those who do see you differently?
I think, I mean, this is something innate in me, as my mother always says, is that I look for challenges. And if I have somebody paying attention to me, no matter what that attention looks like, I say thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to recognize me and for me to play some sort of meaningful role in your head. That means whatever I'm doing is working. Because there's nothing worse than not being seen. So often I think what we do is we use whatever insecurities to feel the way we want to feel through the lens of others. but the words that hurt you are the words that you believe yourself.
Absolutely.
Whereas the words that are said to you are just a reflection that people are paying attention to you. And you can use that attention to create a voice for others that currently don't have that light.
Yeah.
And that's what we did, is that we took on the bullies with a smile, with a thank you.
Yeah.
And now that you've recognized us, this is what we'll do. And for those who doubted us along the way, he said, your circumstance can only define you to whatever limitations you've put. Well, those aren't mine.
Yeah.
Those aren't mine to hold. It's not anything I think about, because all I care about is, am I becoming a better person that can influence others in a more meaningful way?
Yeah, and these things are self-imposed, and they can be so deterring towards the direction that we want to go. And so we can easily find ourselves no longer chasing that dream, no longer seeing ourselves winning those golds. I'm like, where is it? I thought you wrote it. I've only touched it once. We went to a CSI engagement and I was like, oh. And that too, Superstar, for you to step out of your day-to-day, the corporate world, and your choice of going into this big dream. How do you then go back into society and uplift those young people to really, really see that, they are capable of achieving whatever it is beyond their reality?
I think I've been fortunate. I've never had my success lead to the popular fame that exists in society. So I'm not a household name by any regard. So I know that a lot of that success is geared towards a we.
Yeah.
That we are shares the community that brought me up, that village, Omakelwane, those neighbors that said, hey, your kid is talented. I can really see something. I love their personality. I love their smile. And you talk about a duality that you face where you're in the sports field, you've got 80,000 people shouting at you and, roaring you on, people you've never met calling your surname, and millions of people worldwide watching this moment. But when they watch that moment, all I think about is that they're not watching me. This is the country's medal if I'm successful. And I'll be singing the country's national anthem. Nobody's singing, oh, Mpumelelo, you're great. Yeah. Everyone is saying, look at South Africa, look at the talent that exists there. So the message I normally have for a lot of kids is that what you're doing is just representative of what so many others can achieve if they have the right mechanisms of support and they know not to give up on themselves, because that journey is long. It's not overnight. It's 12 years and sometimes you don't even get there. But what you do get at the end of that journey is a lot of people in your corner.
And I want us to go back to that. That ending is very much directed by focus and support. Yes. And I can also attest, to achieve that one thing that you really want to achieve, there's a lot of work that goes into it that a lot of people don't see.
Yes.
And also the right support. I mean, I know you're one of those friends that I have that has put their lives so together that sometimes I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? You're married, you've got a good corporate career going, and you've also diversified in that area. And so, how do you then start to structure that focus, even if it's potentially at a later stage?
Yes.
And to say, this is the support, this is the village that I'm going to have in my life, and this is the journey of success that I'm going to follow.
I think a large part of it is just find something that recharges you every day. I think what we end up doing is either we chase the paycheck, you chase the title, you chase the importance within a certain parameter of walls in your corporate job, or even if it's a sports field, if it's somewhere in the arts where there's a stage at play, wherever it is, if you chase those things they take away a lot of energy. Because oftentimes you're working yourself to the bone, it's late hours, you have to deal with a lot of personalities. But if you're in an environment where you're passionate about it and it recharges you, you wake up excited for your day. You wake up with a sense of purpose that allows you to move in a different manner, which means you are not feeling depleted at the end of the day. If anything, you're excited about what you can achieve the next day.
Absolutely.
Because regardless of the challenges and tears of today, what if tomorrow is my day?
Absolutely.
And if tomorrow is my day, how many more people can I lift up with me to move in that trajectory?
And that's a huge mindset shift.
Yeah, it's a huge mindset shift. And as you said, focus. It sounds like a lot. Yes, you're a structured finance consultant, Paralympian. But those are two things. Those are two focuses. There's people who are parents of four who have to look after themselves, look after their partners, look after kids.
Yeah.
I'm just looking after myself, and in looking after myself, seeing how I can be the best version of a husband to my wife, how can I be the best son to my parent, and then the careers of the sports and corporates just fuel me to be a better version of myself when I get home.
Oh, I love that. You've got so much optimism. I'm like, wow, how do you wake up in the morning? And, Superstar, I mean, I was brought into the world of Paralympic sports.
Yes.
And I often feel being brought into that world was all because of you, and the Zebbies, the Zebbies being Investec team.
Yes.
And at the time when you were competing, we were all brought, this community was brought and built to support you. Although I do find that had I not been exposed to you, then I wouldn't have been quite associated to it, quite eager to watch the games and to follow through and to see the next round and the next round and to know about it. And so I find that in this industry, the accessibility and visibility sometimes may be a little bit silenced. How do you feel about this, and potentially how can you enlighten us for us to move forward in the knowing?
I think everything has its time. And oftentimes we want to chase the glamour of sight and not necessarily the importance of what we bring back into the community. And every single sporting code, especially from a South African perspective, has had a time where it wasn't there. If you look at women's football, there was a time where nobody knew Banyana Banyana. There was a time where netball was not something where we would ever host a World Cup, and so that it becomes a global player in this major space. There was a time where, believe it or not, you take it back 30 years, rugby players in South Africa had to have a job because they couldn't be professional. So I think all that is happening is that as we develop the sport, we must just remind ourselves that the sport doesn't operate in a silo. And the thing that has happened with a lot of athletics, or para-athletics in particular, and para-sports, because we haven't had the funding, we don't have the momentum of all the teams and club formats, we're operating as a very small minority, trying to mean a lot to a community that already ignores us. So first we have to get the community to recognize it by giving back into that community, something that they can't ignore. I think the more that happens, the more we'll see that visibility and accessibility. I mean, when have you heard, I got back from Paris, we had a homecoming at Investec with my colleagues, but then we had a homecoming at Klaarwater, where I had a whole police brigade as if I was Uncle Cyril Matamela himself, Mr. Cupcake, with the police all the way to the township. I went to my late great-grandmother's house on the paternal side, to my grandmother's side on the maternal side, and the full community was there saying, you did us proud. Wasmela. And that essence only came because every time I stood up to say, yes, we've been successful, but I haven't been successful alone.
Oh, my word. That is so profound. Oh, I could keep you here for 10 other minutes. and Superstar, that's so essential that you took it back home, and you constantly remember your village and where you come from, and the community that's made you. And so I'm thinking, I can relate so much to your story. I grew up in Mpumelelo, right, in a 4-room home. And I often think, what would I say to, a young 15, 16-year-old who potentially views their environment as a space that they may not be able to get out of, a space where they're currently facing challenges and there's a few obstacles, but they are still surrounded by access to the simplest things, grounds at school. And they have access to a family potentially or not. When we look back at our upbringing, what is the one thing, as the beacon of hope you are, you would say to this potentially hopeless young person?
I think there's not much you can say because a lot of it has to come internally. But I've got 2 mantras that I always say to anyone who asks for any piece of advice. The first is, if you're asking for advice from me, you're looking at the wrong place. There's much smarter people and a lot more accomplished people that can assist you with the advice. But second to that, what did I do? I just didn't compare to anyone. You know, comparison is the thief of all joy. I grew up in a world where the world was my oyster. I did what I had to do to improve myself. How that related to others, I couldn't have cared less.
Yeah.
But what I did care about is applauding everyone who was working on themselves and just moving a step further. And as you do that, you find that a lot of people applaud you back.
Yeah.
Because what you put out into the world is what you get back.
Oh, I love that. Oh, my word. And I feel I can amplify that in my day-to-day life because we are constantly living in comparison. Just the environments that we're exposed to, social media, and I think you've summed it up so beautifully, superstar. Oh, I'm so glad. Angie, yeah. We can't keep you for long. No. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.